Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Oh, I'm being optimistic. We are getting closer to spring. I know it's only January, but I'm thinking spring. Lots of us love getting outside, planting, beautifying our homes, and we've got a pro that's going to help us out with that. By the way, if you have any questions, I'm here. Instant feedback, steve@gmail.com. She is here. Alicia Blas is somebody who's been beautifying the greater Los Angeles area for decades. She's just amazing. Firmly Planted is her business. Firmly plant your butt in a chair right now because we got a lot to talk about. Alicia, welcome. How are you?
I'm doing very well, thanks. And how are you?
I'm I'm slightly sad. You know why?
No, why? We got to change
Because
that.
yeah, I do. I sold a house last year and in transition with the real estate market, tapped the brakes, was going to buy another. It's like, wait, I truly miss planting in my backyard and doing all of that. I renovated my backyard, learned a lot about plants, planned the whole thing out, and never realized until I wasn't doing it anymore how much I miss it and what it did, even emotionally and spiritually to me. And I can sense that you get what I'm talking about.
Oh, completely. I have a few thoughts on that. The first one is if you've done it once, then you get like bit by the bug, and you realize how amazing that can make you feel,
Uh-huh.
how it looks, what it looks like to others, and really actually why it probably sold even quicker than maybe you wanted it to, because people love outdoor spaces. So the one thing I can say is get yourself a pot and work in that for the meanwhile, because planting is planting. And you
Mm.
have your next one, because I am a believer that things come and go just as they're supposed to, like the seasons, like life, they come in and out, they grow, if you've done it once, like I said, Steve, you'll do it again.
And I drive down streets. My daughter will be in the car. She lives with me, and I'll be looking and I'm like, yeah, I'll be owning another house. And it's going to be like the one on this block. I really love the architecture of these houses. And you're right, because before this last house, I was in about 7 years. I was in a house for about 12 years, did this almost the same exact thing. Almost the
Exactly.
same thing, except I took it to the extreme in this one and very cost effectively just redid the backyard. There was a bunch of trees back there. I never want to, harm nature, but they were scrub brush. They were falling down. Just they were more harmful than not. So blew those out and kind of just I created a tropical oasis. It's what I did.
Lovely. It is so nice. Where are you, by the way?
I'm Long Island, New York.
Okay, so I'm in Los Angeles. So you
Sure.
guys are a little more limited, on when you can be out there. We have just about full year,
Mm,
gardening. I mean, it slows a little in winter,
sure.
but so I do feel for you because doing all that work that you only have it for a certain amount of time, it's like you got to do that.
But there's ways to keep it looking great. By the way, I just
Oh,
talked to somebody that came from Los Angeles. You guys are in a cold snap right now.
oh, it's flipping freezing. At least for us it is.
Yeah, what's your high
Usually
temp
a
today?
dormant time in the garden right now.
Okay. What are you talking? High like 50 around there, 50s?
Well, this morning I went to the nursery. It was 41. That's
Ooh.
cold for us. That's
Yeah.
really cold for us. Now it's probably like 58.
Okay. All right.
Chilly. That's really chilly for us. And our plants aren't really used to that kind of stuff either. So this sets everybody kind of in a tailspin. Things
Yeah,
planted in the earth and things planted on 2 feet and, even things planted on 4 feet. Everybody's like, what?
sure. Sure. And you know how I I love tropical, so I'll just share. I can't name plants. I could never be a doctor and talk about medicine or a horticulturist and be able to say the plant names. But things like the yucca, which is good to like -5 degrees, 10, whatever. I actually went around and I had 14 of them in my yard and
Wow.
bigger ones. every spring I would go around and I would trim them. I would trim off the, the brown parts, and I would give them a haircut and give them a shape. And then I started realizing that they started growing up with a stalk. They started looking like palm trees, little baby palm trees. So even in the
Totally.
winter, it looked like a palm
Totally.
tree.
It's really cool. Tropical stuff can grow in almost any place, actually, and it really does take cold weather,
Mhm.
basically, for a little time. The reason I appreciate yucca and I love that little palm tree vibe, but they can be mean. They bite.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah, they're sharp.
yeah,
They're sharp as hell.
they're sharp as hell. So I
Yeah.
also want to tell you that I study feng shui, and I don't know if you're
Oh.
aware of feng shui, but
Hmm.
feng shui is a vibe and a flow. And so pokey things in the garden are something that you can definitely have, but you wouldn't want to put them like up at your front door or at your gate entrance because pokey things say we're pokey. So while they can be used as like safety, people use them for fences and stuff like that, but know that they're not friendly. So they say in Shui that if you have pokey in the garden, you're a pokey guy. So with how many did you say you had, you pokey thing,
Like
you?
14. However, now just a moment, and I love you. You take this to way different levels with the feng shui and more. I didn't have any by the front door, although by the back sliding door, a few, yes, and along the house and near a gate. But here's the big however. I said I trimmed them. They're not sharp anymore. I cut all the sharp pieces off, not because of what you're saying. I didn't know about that, but because they look better to me.
Right,
I've
but
been
actually
literally,
you did know about that because even if you didn't consciously know about it, you were right because they're mean, they look better, and they're a heck of a lot friendlier when they don't have those teeth because they bite.
yeah. Oh, I got many cuts. I mean, literally would take me a day every spring to do it. And my hands were just
Totally.
all sliced up, even with gloves on.
Yeah.
And especially pulling the older stalks off them, off the, I guess the trunk. Sometimes you got to get on them, but then you don't want to damage them. But uh, let's talk about some of your favorite flowers. What and I guess a lot of this is seasonal or regional. But
Right.
what are some of your favorites?
So, what I want to say about flowers, I love flowers. So, before I was a garden designer, I was a set designer and a photo stylist.
Wow.
So, whatever I could use flowers in my sets or in my clothing or whatever, I did. Now, I kind of am, I mean, maybe with age too, I'm a little more into leafy and leafy color. I do love flowers. I try to tell clients to flowers kind of in pots, leafy stuff, because leafy stuff always looks good. Flowers have their wonderful moment, but they go quickly. So try to tell people like don't do an entire garden full of flowers because there'll be times you have nothing and times that are things that are like, messy. So I love leafy, and there's in any zone and every region and every season, there are leafies that will stay. Some are called deciduous, which means they go away for winter.
Hmm.
And then there's evergreen. But flowers are not, deciduous or evergreen. They come in their moment and then they're gone.
And their work because then
They're
they
work.
fall off. Now you've got them on the ground. If you want a nice clean look, now you need to get rid of that. I did find one, and I believe it's a tropical type. Um, Last summer, and it's hard for me to describe it, but it's slightly viney and it has little flowers that are sort of like pink, but the flowers lasted way longer than I mean, it lasted all summer and they didn't really fall off that often.
Was
Very
it
hardy.
bougainvillea? Not bougainvillea. Is
I
it
don't
poke?
no, more viney, slightly viney. It might, tower over a pot, which I had it in.
Hangover. The hangover.
A little bit. These flowers were pink. I see them a lot of times in like a dark pink. But I should have found out what it was because I want them again. It was
Exactly.
so
That's what
low maintenance. And then you have other flowers in pots. Well, again, then they die off. Then you have to pinch them off, and it's just a lot of work. This thing left it by the
I
gate.
love those too. So I want to be clear. Annuals are flowers that come once a year. Impatience, people who live in cold places want to really they have a few months, they want it to be like, oh my God, this is ridiculous. You can stuff them with impatience, stuff them with begonias, stuff them with, petunias. They'll last all summer, but then they are in garbage and you have nothing the next year. You got to start all over again.
Yeah.
Perennials are things that come back each year and flower at the same time each year, So I, living in Los Angeles, am much more into planting perennials and potting annuals because they
Mm.
need a lot more water. The ones that get like wow for a few months, definitely more maintenance, more water, more show, more, pizzazz, but they're a quick one. Like anything in life, Steve, if it's like a short fuse, like it's fabulous for a minute and then it goes. It's not really that good. If it's a quick one. Anything that's like a slow, yummy is the way to go. So that's the way I kind of look at annuals. I love them. They're fast. They need a load of water. They need, but they'll give you the biggest
Pop.
buck
Yeah.
bang, but only for a minute.
Yeah.
Short
Yeah.
fuse, quickie, feel good.
Yeah. And you say begonias right away. I get a visual of the flowers in short time dying off and more calm, of course, but then they get all brown and nasty and
That's
all
like
like crusty and
crusty.
yeah, no,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
not my thing. Not my thing.
Unless you have somebody there that's all the time, like a hotel, or you live on an estate where somebody's there picking the crusty and then you only see the good,
Yeah.
you want to be outside and feel like, oh my gosh. But truth is, especially in wintry times, green, even crusty green, can be lovely when you got nothing and it's freezing.
Well, that this is true. This is true. How about going back to feng shui and some tips you might have for planting, arranging, or let's say the best outcome?
Okay, so the whole idea that I in feng shui is it's a feeling. Really, it's a feeling. If they say that a bad shui is you don't ever want to have like a big tree right at your front door where you open it up and you're seeing a tree, right in front of you, because it says that things don't flow as well. So you don't, if possible, sometimes you can't do what's not possible, and if you can't, there's other little secrets that you can do to make that. But if at all possible, the best way is flow.
Mm,
Always flow. You can drive into a neighborhood, know nothing about where you are, see no trees and lots of concrete. The shui isn't good. You can drive into a neighborhood that's full of green, just a feeling. You don't even know where you are. You're like, okay, this just feels good. It doesn't even matter where it is.
yeah.
Shui is good. So these are like you kind of have an inside barometer to what flows and what doesn't. We all do. But anything that you have to force or shove in is never good shui. Even if things are looking a little bit naked, as long as they're not like looking dead and, they're still okay. If anything looks brown and dead, you got to get rid of it. If you can always scratch at it, see if it's alive. You can't hold on to dead. Definitely not good shui. So that's a really important thing. If you do have a lot of crusties on your plants, the best thing you can do is to take them off. The whole
Mm.
idea of just looking at things in nature that are beautiful, even if they're a little crusty, okay, but to take care of them like anything. You take care of stuff, it looks good, it feels better.
You
And
know, I spoke with somebody who does feng shui, not planting. So this is very different and very cool. But in some regard, she said what you said. And she said that let's say you have an urn, cremation urn, from somebody, loved one, whatever, in your house. Her feeling is kind of what you just said, probably not good to have
yeah,
there.
right. I mean, there are certain things with a bit of common sense. I mean, loved ones is a funky one. Some people like want to have a shrine and be like, this was my mother. I want to hold on to this.
Right.
But there are places, that's not, if you walk in, another thing I love is I love a mirror. I love a mirror in my garden. I love a
Hmm.
mirror in my house, where you can see in front of you, you can see behind you. I love those kind of things outdoor as much. I do more outdoor, but in the inside too. There's certain places you can put your bed,
Wow.
certain places you can where your money should be that you want to have your desk in the right direction. That's all a kind of shui as well. I personally do mostly garden, but I do it in my house too. But people, it really indoor and outdoor are very similar in the way you treat them. Your outdoor entrance is almost, I think, as important as your indoor entrance. Walking up to your front door, if it's all kicked in and there's like messy all over, that says like where you're headed. So
Mm,
I do a little bit of on my own thing too, and I'm speak of on my Instagram. I do a lot of inside gardening and outside gardening. The outside gardening is more about soil and plants. The inside garden is more about soul and consciousness. But I always feel like life is like a garden. You plant those seeds, you take care of those seeds. In wintertime, there's many things that are deciduous. In wintertime, we kind of go in, get a little quieter, do a little more stuff inside the house. In summer, the garden does that exact same thing. Summertime, we're all outside, we're hanging out, we're free to be. Garden does that same thing. So there's so many similarities in inside and outside. And I always say if your outdoor garden is looking good, you're in a pretty good space on the inside. If your outdoor garden or your outside even looks like, cars parked everywhere, tires in the yard, that kind of thing, life is a little bit funky inside there.
hmm. Interesting. Lots to process here. Even the front door thing. I'm currently renting. It's in a complex, so I can't, I don't have a lot of latitude. Not crazy about the plants that are by the front door and all of that. But as we're saying all this, I'm thinking to myself, I don't even know I do it. I go through the garage where it's wide open, there's nothing blocking, and now it's probably the flow of energy. Like
Absolutely.
I never, ever, ever, ever use my front door.
You see what that is so true about you don't even realize it. There's rooms in your house that make you feel a little funky. You don't even realize it, but if you think about it, you might not actually sit in them as much. Like it's a soul thing that you aren't even maybe conscious of. But now that I'm telling you this and we're discussing it, you know how that
Hmm.
you open it up, it's like my girlfriend Oprah says, those who know better do better. So once you're aware of these things, you're like, okay,
Yeah,
that's true. Probably don't feel good when I walk through that door. I feel much better when I'm walking in my garage door.
yeah, and it's probably because open. And I love trees. I don't like a lot of them. I like them well placed and well maintained. In my situation, there's dead stuff hanging off of it. So when it gets warmer up, going away. Um, yeah, it makes such a difference. And somebody who is very intuitive, he's world famous for this. He once told me that if you've got, and this is before I even knew about energy, if you've got boxes around and things in your pathway in your house, you are blocking the flow of energy and it's very bad.
Completely. Same with like a hoarder. I mean, you don't even have to know. We already know about hoarding, but that is such bad shui, let alone that you're a complete disaster because we can tell if you're a hoarder, God bless you, but it's bad shui. Like there's nothing good that's coming from a bunch of crap you have to walk over to get where you're going.
Exactly. All right. Indoor feng shui. I've never even knew this existed in terms of planting. So indoor house plants, where should we plant them? Like in this office right here in back of me, I have a more tropical looking big potted plant that's it's facing south. It's by the window and it's south. I don't know if that's good or bad, but those little things like that. Anything that you could share?
Well, you know what? I was a photo stylist before I was a garden designer, so I'm all about aesthetics. Actually, where you're sitting right now, if you had something green in the corner behind you, it would feel so much warmer. I mean, it's lovely. You got your photos there. I love your orange wall. Okay, I can't really see that, but there you have it,
Needs to be bigger. Needs to be bigger,
Well,
but I
or it
agree.
needs to be lifted up onto something where it's coming like behind you and I can see it,
I agree. I agree.
But the orange wall makes a huge difference. The pink light behind you is so much warmer. I see green I mean, you got lots of good color around you. But like you see my background, I have a yellow door. I have a picture behind me. These things like you don't even realize, but really two things about indoor plants. You got to be extra careful with indoor plants because you get bugs from indoor plants, like little
Mm.
fleas and stuff like that. I personally would not want any plants that bring fleas. So I always have the plants that I have is like an orchid.
Hmm.
It lasts for 2 or 3 months. It's alive. It doesn't get the bugs like other plants do because it's not actually soil, because the bug stuff is coming from soil.
Wow.
Yeah, so I love living things. I think every room needs a little bit of living. And if it can't be living, it still should feel alive. I'm not one for fake plants by any means, especially really cheesy ones, but there are things like air plants that you could use that you don't need. And the lighting isn't always right. Better to have a plant that's alive. If you're trying to fight with some dark room and have a plant, you're better off not having a plant there. Bring in another element that's earthy, a wood something, a water something.
Hmm. Even like a water feature.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Wow.
For you, it wouldn't be as good though because the sound. I make podcasts as well. I can't sit where and I always do them in gardens. I can't sit where because noise is funky. We got to keep it quiet. So for you in that space, it wouldn't be, but in your house, it certainly. I mean, water is lovely. Water has so many magic little properties to it as well. Good shui.
You know what? I'm good outside. Inside house plants, I don't have a lot of luck with, although this current situation, they've lasted. I don't know how I'm doing it, but they've been around longer than
The
others.
light must be better. It's not easy.
Is it all come down to light?
It
A
does. It
lot of
all.
it?
Well, the keys to planting for any single thing is right plant, right place, no matter what. So near a window can be difficult. The sun can be brutal, you know. There's certain thing. Lighting for indoor plants is a little different. It comes in this thing called candles. It's like a reading of light. I'm not really sure how to explain it because it's not my thing. But I would never just go buying a plant without doing a little research on the inside because they're not easy to do. And again, with the shui, you're better off with no plant than a dead plant.
Interesting.
So I'm
Wow.
just saying.
Yeah. And there was a time in that office, the plant that's there, it was a different plant. Uh, it was essentially dead, and I was just too lazy to get rid of it. And
And it's really not good shui to have a dead plant in there.
it's
But
a
I'm going to plug Trader Joe's here because they do a lot of like tabletop plants that last for a minute. You know what I mean? More than they're not ridiculously expensive. It would give you. So I'm going to tell you a lovely plant for inside is a philodendron.
okay.
It beautiful leaves. It can take a little more shade. It can't go dark, but it gets where the leaves get big. It kind of has its own little personality. You can keep it where it just stays in a corner. They sell them at Trader Joe's. They're already beautiful. Mine is huge now. It was a little desktop from Trader Joe's. I put it
Hmm.
outside. It's huge.
I might even have one. I wish I could turn the camera, but I've got one in a corner and nothing has prospered there except this one, and it's gotten bigger. Um, I I'll feel the soil, and the soil feels moist, not like, mushy wet. But I always wonder when I should water it. And I know that it's not really draining. Thoughts on that?
So inside plants usually die from too much water because people just do they walk past, they throw the end of their water in there. They're drinking, they go to bed in the morning, they wake up with a glass of water, they put the water in there.
Yeah.
Huge, huge problem. A. B, it's not just a little finger, it's like a knuckle inside the soil because the roots are what matters, not the top. So you really need to get your finger down, even if you have to use a little knife around the edge and push it down and then put your finger in, you'll see because indoor plants, the water stays much more than they would outside where there's wind and sunshine.
Yeah.
So I would be willing to say, I couldn't guarantee it, but majority of plants on the inside are dead from too much water.
And there's no drainage. Where's the drainage unless
Exactly.
you,
That's why you got to let them. And an orchid, you can throw an ice cube in once a week, and that's good to go. You can do that on many plants, though. I do. I
wow.
throw ice cubes in. Ice cubes is a slow drip. Who doesn't want a slow drip, Steve?
I never even thought of that idea. Wow. You're amazing. We can go forever. It's like the endless, endless.
It really is endless.
It is. And it's so much fun and so gratifying. And in terms of the energy, does so much for you in terms of planting. Alicia, what's your website? How do we find you?
My website is firmlyplanted.com. I invite you all to come to my Instagram because I do regular posts and videos, and I talk a lot about native gardening because it's a lot of less water. So we're all about wherever you are. I mean, not 100% native, but native enough that there are plants, especially here in California, that you don't need. We're always on a water restriction. We finally came back off of it, but we have to think along those lines that we don't want to. So my website is firmlyplanted.com. My Instagram is firmlyplanted. And there's so many good little things to share. This was so lovely to talk about it. And it goes on and on and on because I think my philosophy, nothing is better than surrounding yourself with nature and beauty, because even if life is like it is now, which is a bit of a beep, you can feel and get to this place where you're like, I can do this, I can do this. When life gets crazy, it's like a meditation to be surrounded by green. So that's my philosophy on life. It's a drug and it's so healthy. It's the best drug. You can be stoned on green.
It's true. Grounded. When people used to say, hug a tree, get grounded, I was like, weird. No, it's the real deal. And that's why
firmly planted.
Firmly planted. There you go. And that's why even when we opened here, I said I miss being in my garden, and I never realized what I was doing. It was like getting therapy. I would walk outside with no shoes on. My feet were black, dirty. I didn't care because I don't know why I was doing it then. Now I know why I was doing it.
Totally. Your soul. You were listening to your soul, Steve.
Yep. And just get your hands in the dirt. It's all good.
Love it. Love it.
Alicia, I'm working on that HGTV show for you. You need one?
Oh, I do. Love you, Steve. I'm here when you're ready. You just keep me posted, friend.
Totally. Thank you so much today. Fantastic. Yeah.
Stay
Looking
warm.
forward next time we get a chance to get together.
Okay, good. Be well, my friend. Thank you.
I'll see you in the garden. We'll be right back.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.